Alex Glaudé picks up the win and a spot on the national team. And
go to a women's wrestling tournament. Find a local tournament and go watch.
And a nice little go behind, great transition from Glaude. She's gonna pick up 2. Now she goes to work on top.
In the finals match, I was down by 1 point and was able to secure a takedown in the last 13 seconds, I think.
And running out of time, Glaude takes it.
My recovery did not go the way that most people's do. Maybe I need to find something else to do soon.
She'll have the opportunity to make Final X, the World Team Trials, but Alex Glaude back in Final X.
Bad things are gonna happen, but you have this Heavenly Father who cares deeply for you, and that if you just...
Hey everyone, Jamie here. Welcome to Flame Bearers Unedited, a brand new series bringing to you largely unedited conversations. We heard you loud and clear. You want to hear more stories of more elite women athletes from around the world. So let's jump in.
My name is Alexandria Glaudé, and I'm a freestyle wrestler for Team USA.
And Alexandria, I know you used to be into basketball, so talk to us a little bit about how you got into wrestling.
It's always a funny story. So I started playing basketball in the 4th grade, and I really was just interested in it because my dad played basketball. For some context, my dad was also 6'2", and I am not even close, but I loved it. And when I got to high school, I was also in band. I started playing the clarinet maybe in like the 2nd grade. So I played all the way through high school. And my sophomore year, I had friends in band who also were on the wrestling team. They were like, you should come join wrestling. And I didn't even know what wrestling was, to be honest. Like, I'd never seen it and thought it was like the craziest thing when I did figure out what it was. But they were very persistent about trying to get me to join this team. And I was like, fine, if I get cut from basketball, I will join wrestling. But I didn't think I was gonna get cut from basketball when I said that. And the next day I got cut from basketball. Oh. So it was literally like, couldn't have planned it any better. It feels like the choice was made for me. I went to wrestling practice the next day and the rest was history.
That is hilarious. So 1, good for you for living up to your word. 2, what was that like first day at wrestling practice where you're like, I'm a basketball player. I don't know anything about this sport. You know, that's a huge adjustment.
Huge adjustment. I was literally so in shock when I walked in because it was also a conjoined team. So it was men and women. And so I'm seeing them do all these crazy movements like duck walks and so just things I've never seen before, and was like, you want me to do that? I don't even think my body can do that. So it was really scary. The first 2 weeks, I hated it. I wanted to quit. And my mom was just on me. She was like, sorry, like you don't really get to quit things. You need to stick it out for the whole season. And then if by the end you don't like it, you don't have to do it again next year. But by the end of the year, I fell in love with it.
Wow. I heard a value in there that from your mom, you can't quit. Is this something that you grew up with in other parts of your life?
Yeah, 100%. My mom and I were like this, and we've been through a lot together, a lot of hardship and just some tragedy early on in my life. And so not to get too dark, but I feel like it helps share this kind of value. My dad was killed when I was 7 years old, and that kind of left the 2 of us. And other family helped raise me, but the 2 of us kind of really had to cling to faith and just not quitting and having a spirit of like bravery and courage and persistence. And so that is kind of like our thing, like life's gonna happen, but we have to continue to press forward.
Wow, that's not too dark at all. It is your reality. I am so sorry that happened. I lost my dad. My dad was not killed, but I cannot even imagine how upsetting, stressful, infuriating, whatever, all those different emotions that is. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to share.
So you talked about your faith. I would love to hear a little bit more about that if you're open to sharing and what role it has played in your journey.
So I grew up Catholic and still am. Part of my faith really got set in after like the tragedy in my life. My mom she was young when she had me. And so she kind of helped me develop this relationship with God and like understanding that bad things are going to happen. But you have this Heavenly Father who cares deeply for you, and that if you just really cling to that relationship, like all things are possible. And so I learned that young, thankfully, and throughout life, things have happened here and there, but that's always been kind of the core value that I've gone back to, is just that my life has purpose, and that whatever I surrender to God will be used, and that I can mess up, I can fail, I can embarrass myself, no matter what. Like, I'm loved and I have purpose, and that I have something to share. And if I can help other people share in that same love, then hopefully the world will be a better place. So that's kind of, I think, just at the core of who I am. And I wrestle now, obviously, but I think that wrestling is really just like a gift and a tool that God has given me to connect with people. And I'm learning that more now, like as I've matured. Earlier on in my wrestling career, I really, really cared a lot about winning, but it's also a very humbling sport. And like God has showed me how my faith can grow in something like wrestling.
Sure. I saw an interview with you right after this past weekend when you won the US Open, and you said that you used to really care about winning and you didn't expect yourself to win. So for those who haven't been following your career like a hawk like I have, what happened and what did that mean to you?
I wrestled at the US Open in Las Vegas. It's a 2-day tournament, and winning this tournament means you qualify for what's called Final X. And Final X is a best 2 out of 3 series for the number 1 spot on Team USA. If you're not familiar with wrestling, we have 10 weight classes. Top 3 at each weight make up Team USA, but only the number 1 person goes to World Championships. So it's kind of wild. The US Open, winning that would be the first step of getting closer. I've secured my spot on Team USA again, but I, would love to be the representative at World Championships. In the finals match, I was down by 1 point and was able to secure a takedown in the last 13 seconds, I think. And I was very, very overwhelmed with emotion afterwards. I was so elated, but also just couldn't stop crying. It felt like such a shock. So it was wonderful.
And I know this is coming on the heels of a long recovery from injuries. So I think one thing that I would love to hear a little bit more about is what this arc has been like for you, because fans watch you on TV. We see those golden moments. We see you do that takedown and celebrate and being happy, but we don't see all of the trials and tribulations, what you go through on a daily basis to get you even to the mat. So share what that journey has been like for you.
Oh man, it has been a wild ride. So I actually had qualified for Final X back in 2019, and I was still in college. I had lost to who would eventually become one of our Olympic gold medalists. And after 2019, I finished the college season in 2020. COVID happens. We have our Olympic trials postponed a year. I don't have a great finish at that tournament. And then I get injured. I tear my ACL, my meniscus, and it was pretty heartbreaking. I had just moved to Oregon to continue training. I had just won Pan Ams, and after that, I have this injury. But to be honest, I'm so glad that it happened, because it kind of set me on this crazy journey of high points, low points, but ultimately what felt like rewriting the story of my wrestling. Prior to my injury, I was feeling so focused on winning and feeling like I had to achieve certain things to feel like my wrestling career was successful, to feel like I was successful. Yeah. And going through the process of being injured felt like a huge wake-up call. And I felt like I had many conversations with God about what are you doing? And what do you truly care about? And what is your goal in life? And during that time when what felt like the center of my world was no longer the center of my world, I felt like I had to really get clear about what my values were again. And it was hard because my recovery did not go the way that most people's do. Mm-hmm. They told me 6 to 9 months, and it took 2 years to get back to competition. Yeah. I had my main surgery, I had a second operation, and then I had a third in June of 2024 after this last Olympic trials. So it's been a rocky road. I returned to competition, I think, in 2022, and that was hard. I didn't feel like myself yet, and in 2023, I made it to the finals of the US Open again, and I lost. And all through that, my knee was not 100%, but it was serviceable. I was in a lot of pain, and I also was wrestling mentally with like, maybe I'll never be as good as I was. Like maybe 2019 was my peak, and maybe I need to find something else to do soon.
And you mentioned that these conversations with God that you had or what helped pull you through. Before we started, I know that you wanted to share a little bit about the positive side of faith, but also kind of dispel some of the negative connotations that people may have about it. So what is it that you want to share about what it has given you, but then also maybe dissuade people of some potentially misunderstandings?
For one, I wouldn't have made it here to this point without my faith, that's for sure. And during my recovery process, I really had to like come to grips with being okay and accepting of myself, regardless of if I had any certain level of achievements. And I think it was until I could accept that, I wasn't gonna like progress in wrestling. Like I think I really had to come to this place of self-acceptance and knowing that if I'm gonna be in alignment with God's plan, like that doesn't always mean that I'm gonna get what I want, but I have to know and trust that it's gonna be what's best for me and what's best for the world ultimately. And when I say world, like I don't mean like all 8 billion people, but just the people that I'm in interaction with and whoever like I'm called to be in communion with. As far as dispelling any negatives, I mean, I had mentioned earlier, like I grew up Catholic. I know a lot of people have unfortunately either been hurt by the church, whether it's like the Catholic Church or Christianity in general. And I'm not necessarily here to debate with anyone's experiences. I just hope that and pray that people can have an open heart and mind to encountering God on their own. Understanding that at the root that like God loves you and that you have purpose and that like you don't have to be perfect. I don't know if you follow like the church at all, but our Pope just recently passed after Easter. And I've seen like just this outpouring of love and people being awakening to the way that he lived and realizing that like, no, the core pillars of our faith are like love, justice, mercy, and grace. Not you need to be a part of this particular like political affiliation. You don't have to have a certain amount of money. You don't have to be a certain way to receive God's love. And that's like the message that I want to convey to others because I think the world needs that and we need each other. And I feel like in a time that feels very like stressful, I can't think of another word, but just we're meant to be in communion with each other. And I hope that even if it's not the Catholic Church, I just hope that they can find faith on their own. And I think that's enough to like help us all be a unified people.
Absolutely. I love what you're sharing about faith being a thread that can bring us all together, can unify us. My hope is that sport can be as well. It's a common language that I think so many people around the world, it doesn't matter what religion you are, what language you speak, what color you are, we can all, watch and be in communion with that together.
Yeah, 100%. Wrestling is part of how I learned that, which is crazy.
Now, I have to ask you about being a female wrestler. So wrestling, very traditionally male-dominated sport. I believe it's one of the fastest growing women's sports in the United States, which makes me so pumped. What can we do to help spread awareness, spread the word, get more women into wrestling?
So there's lots of different organizations already that are trying to help continue to grow the sport. Wrestle Like a Girl, Beat the Streets. Beat the Streets has, a sect in a ton of different states right now. And it's not just focused on women's wrestling, but they are providing a lot of opportunities for women and men in the sport and helping these underserved communities provide access to wrestling. So I think finding different organizations like that, and I can also like send some to you too, and helping just shed light on them and also helping send resources. I think financially that would be huge to help just continue to provide opportunities for these up and coming generations of athletes. And then even at the senior level too, on the women's side, there's just not as many opportunities for us as the men still to continue training at a high level after college. Yeah, so we have the Olympic Training Center as an option in Colorado Springs, and there used to be these organizations called regional training centers. I just recently moved to the California Regional Training Center based out of Stanford University. I was previously with the Beaver Dam Regional Training Center at Oregon State, Oregon. This is our current model. I think there's a lot of people who are trying to think up what can we do to make more opportunities like this. So again, like funding is huge for a lot of us, and even just getting the word out and having media coverage, having eyes on us, and realizing that like our sport is super exciting and we're worth investing in.
Yes. And any organizations you send our way, we'll include in our show notes so our community can learn more, support all those call to actions that you just mentioned. One thing that I'm really curious about, because wrestling is unique in this sense, making weight as well as cauliflower ear, which I love, by the way. My fiance was a wrestler in college, and it's his favorite attribute about himself. But as a woman, I got to ask, what is this like for you? Because there's a lot of very narrow portrayals of beauty. Have you ever felt any tension there, or not at all?
100%. It's an interesting question, actually, because prior to wrestling, I feel like I really struggled with body image and just like accepting myself, especially because I've always actually been pretty built. But as a kid, I just thought I was like too big, and I had kids who were not very nice to me. And so once I got into wrestling and I discovered like, oh, I'm actually really powerful and like strong, and I can lift a lot of weights and I can do really cool things. It was actually through wrestling that I started to really appreciate my body and feel like, no, like I'm beautiful the way I am. Like I was made this way on purpose. And once I could see that my body was capable of so much, my image of myself changed in a positive way, mostly.
What would you want to say to young female wrestlers who may be asking themselves some similar questions right now?
Beauty is more than just, I think, what you see in the mirror. It's like an all-around thing, like your mind, your spirit, like the way that you treat people, and also just the way that you can move. Like that's all beautiful. And I think wrestling and sport in general is an expression of yourself. And I think wrestling is a unique sport because it's you and another person in a way, like dancing together. And I think that's like a very beautiful thing. It's a gift. And so being willing to explore that, and not just like how you're perceived online and how you look in certain outfits. I also think wrestling is such a unique sport because it's one of the few, I think, where any body type could be successful. If you go to a wrestling tournament, you're going to see tall people, skinny people, like strong built. You're going to see all these different athletic and physical attributes, and all of them can have success in a different way. So it's not like you need to fit a certain mold to be in this sport. You just have to be you, and that's going to be good enough.
You mentioned taking care of your body, your mind, your spirit. What are the tools and tips that you use to take care of yourself on a daily basis?
I've spent the past year or two really doubling down on my mental training because that was something that I struggled with before. And so I journal a lot and try to be intentional about my training, but also just things that I'm struggling with and writing them down. It's helpful to see it physically. And I also try to have a good morning routine, have a good night routine, making time for reflection and just feeding my body good things. And also for me, I find it important to make sure that training is fun from time to time because wrestling is hard. I try not to approach training super serious. If I can laugh during practice, that would be great.
Wow, that is such an excellent tip that we don't really hear a lot. Thank you for raising that. Alexandria, what is the world that you want to see for women's sports moving forward? I think of you as such a leader in the world of sports and women's sports in particular, obviously within wrestling. As you look to your future, as you look to potentially LA 28, what are your hopes?
I just want women's sports to be huge. And it already is, but I would just love to see every sport on the women's side have a platform and have that information easily accessible, and to see it on TV and to see commercials and to just see the same opportunities in abundance for women. Because right now it's during basketball season, during March Madness, everywhere you see it on the soda bottles at the grocery store, you see it on cereal, everything is about March Madness. And we have really exciting events like that in wrestling. We have it in women's basketball and rugby, and the list goes on. I would love to see that for the women, and hopefully in ways that I can't even fathom, but just to know that you can support and get behind all of these athletes in all these different sports, and that they have the opportunities and are taken care of. and don't have to like worry about, working a full-time job and training.
If you're comfortable, are you having to work a full-time job in addition to train? How do you balance all of that? Because that's two separate, completely full-time jobs.
I currently am not working a full-time job, thankfully, but what I have done to supplement myself because I don't want to work another full-time job is social media. And I remember, I want to say maybe it was like 2 years ago, I had a conversation with my husband of like, we're going to have to figure something out. I literally had a Trader Joe's application up on my computer and I was having like a little bit of success on social media, and so I remember having this conversation internally, but also with him of like, okay, I need to make more money. What should I do?
Right.
I don't want to sacrifice my training, but at the same time, like, we have to live somewhat comfortably. And I was like, I'm going to treat social media like a job. Like, I'm going to double down, like, because I know I have the skill. I know I have the knowledge and like the talent and the story to share. And we're not going to see it pay off right away. And he was like in full support. So I started like committing to posting more frequently, of like learning how the algorithm works. I'm like, I could either spend how many hours a day like working at a grocery store, which is fine. And a lot of women do that. Like, we got to hustle however we can. But I knew that I had something else that I thought I could give. And so I went down that route of trying to really grow online and go the content creator route while training.
Absolutely. And I've loved seeing your content. I even saw one day there was a post with audio being like, I'm supposed to post something. I don't know what I'm posting. Basically about like the struggles of being a content creator. Give us some visibility into what this has been like you, because this is a whole separate job. This is a whole other skill set that you are having to juggle as well.
It's been such a learning curve, but it's a lot of fun for the most part. I think the most interesting thing is the fact that each platform is a little bit different. And so what works on one isn't always going to work on the other. And so trying to figure out that is a little bit difficult. And I think a lot of people don't realize too with content is I actually spend a lot of hours editing things, sifting through the footage that I've recorded, trying to figure out what I want to share, what I don't want to share, spending time putting something together and then it completely flopping. And then another thing too is I don't have a management team. So as I started getting to work with bigger brands, I'm like reading through these contracts and these big lawyer terms. I'm like, what does this mean? I'm like putting stuff into ChatGPT. Like, can you explain this?
So overwhelming. It's so much.
I'm my social media manager. I'm my marketing team. I'm my agent. I'm a content creator, editor.
You're killing it.
Thank you. I'm doing my best.
I've always loved seeing all the content you post on social, and it's
Thank you.
really cool to be given insight into your day-to-day, because I feel like that's something that not a lot of people provide. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's nice to know that it is being benefited from and that people enjoy it. That's always good to know.
Definitely. One question that we like to end with and ask all of the athletes is, what one action do you want people to take after hearing your story? So we have listeners in over 56 countries. We've worked with Olympians, Paralympians, aspiring Olympians, Paralympians, moms, fathers, uncles, you name it. A lot of people are really passionate about supporting women athletes. So what is the one thing you would like them to do after hearing this conversation?
To go to a women's wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
Like to go to an event and watch, not just follow, but if you can, to like find a local tournament and go watch.
Thanks for tuning into Flame Bearers Unedited. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a positive review on your favorite podcasting platform or YouTube. If you want to see more behind the scenes coverage, follow us on social media. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, whatever platform you're on, we're there too. Thanks, and we'll catch you on our next episode.